Hi, my name is Donna Thompson, and I created this presentation to show some connecting factors that can play a role in leading to obesity. And these factors that I was going to focus on are the thyroid hormone, sex or gender, stress, body image, the food environment, and socioeconomic status or SES. And then this is a connecting map of how the different uh, factors are related. So there's biological factors, and I chose to focus on thyroid hormones and sex. And then for psychological factors, there's stress and body image. And then for cultural factors, there is food environment and the socioeconomic status. So breaking it down, the thyroid is one of the main endocrine organs that plays a role in modulating overall health. It plays a role in glucose and lipid metabolism. And then it can be producing too much, which is hypothyroidism, or hyperthyroidism is whenever it doesn't produce enough hormones. And then that can lead to either storing more or less body fat, as it can lead to disruptions in its ability to maintain the metabolism of the body. And then if you do end up with having hypothyroidism, where there's too much, then they can lead to an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes, having obesity, and then there's an increased risk of bone problems, and more issues can come about. My connection to the thyroid hormones is that um, both my mom and her mom had issues with their thyroid, and my mom ended up having hers removed at some point in time. And she always struggled with her weight, and so did her mom. Um, and it was really hard um, to deal with that. And they had to be on medication for the rest of their lives because of the needing to have external help with having the thyroid hormones in their body. And then the next biological factor is sex. And there are slightly more males and females who are obese, but there are some other roles that can play a role in females having obesity. Um, and that can be that they are more, they, as they are growing up, they might stress eat more and develop those type of tendencies. Um, and there are some sex hormones and the ability to get pregnant, and then later on in life have menopause, which can increase the amount of fat that the body holds onto, and that can also play a role in obesity. And if a woman starts off her pregnancy overweight, there are a higher potential for health complications during pregnancy in overweight and obese mothers than in normal weight mothers. And then moving on to the psychological factors. Stress is any disruption of the homeostasis of the body. And some people can develop it chronically because their body is a constant state of stress. And then sometimes it's just acutely. Um, and stress plays a role in controlling the hormones. Um, and they are responsible for causing those hunger pangs, cravings for energy-rich foods like fatty foods and sugary foods. And stress can be tiring and exhausting, and that can lead to people not having enough energy to cook for themselves healthy meals or leading to them not having enough energy to find time to exercise. Um, so those are ways that stress can play a role in obesity. And I feel like I can connect that to like mm, just I feel like everyone I know, like especially in college, would find ways to stress eat, and then it can lead to a lot of people gaining like the freshman 15 in a certain way, especially like some people choose to not eat, and then other people choose to eat more when they're stressed. Um, and since females are more likely to have the uh, stress eating, then I feel like that also matches up with the biological sex one. And then the other one is body image. And this one is more so that there's positive and there's negative body image where they can view themselves internally and externally, and they might compare themselves to others, not just their own self. So whenever they compare themselves positively to others, then that can lead to them feeling motivated to change or feel motivated to continue in how they're living. And then if they have negative comparison, it can lead to them feeling inadequate and have negative self-image. And that can lead to worse off outcomes like increased anxiety and depression and feelings of hopelessness. So if someone was starting out that way as an obese person, then it might be harder for them to feel the positivity to be able to get out. Whereas with body positivity movements, with people who might be overweight and showing change in a positive light, um, those who are overweight might be able to find motivation to do change and not feel negatively towards those changes. And I feel like I connect to the body image as well with um, just comparing myself sometimes to others around me, especially in like sports and just in social media. And then for cultural um, as factors, there is the food environment. And there was a study that, or a meta-analysis that compared um, a lot of different locations, and they would of like supermarkets and restaurants, and they found that there was an inverse relationship between the location, like how close people were to a supermarket, to the amount of or the prevalence of obesity. So they were closer, whenever people were closer to the supermarkets, then they were less likely to be obese. And then they found the same type of inverse relationship between the presence of lots of fruits and fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, so produce, and obesity. So whenever there was lots of produce available, then there was less likelihoods of obesity. And then whenever there was a close proximity to fast food restaurants, then there was a relationship with or a positive relationship with obesity. So whenever people were close to those types of fast food restaurants, then they were more likely to be obese. And I feel like that just is very much shown in um, very rural areas where there might be food insecurity and there's less availability and access to the supermarkets where there's a lot of fresh produce and there's more locations of those types of fast food restaurants. And then for socioeconomic status, it is a combination of education, income, occupation, and social class. And there was a study in Australia, and they looked into the connections between socioeconomic status and obesity, and they found that the lower socioeconomic students were associated with higher rates of obesity. And that kind of had to do with them and their parents teaching them not as healthy eating habits compared to higher socioeconomic status children, and their parents teaching them to have been led by example to eat the more produce and whole grains and less fatty foods. And then there was also that those who were in lower socioeconomic status households were more likely to play video games in their free time, as opposed to higher socioeconomic status kids were more likely to play outside or just participate in physical activity in their free time. And there was also a high risk of developing obesity for kids whose parents were obese compared to normal weight parents. So that is all. So overall, it was just the combination of thyroid hormones and gender and stress, body image, the food environment, and socioeconomic status. Thank you.